The shuttle doors parted with a faint hydraulic hiss, releasing a breath of recycled air into the vast docking bay of Virexis Academy. Cadet Kadra Hale stepped forward, boots clicking against a metallic floor that shimmered with embedded conduits. Her movements were precise, deliberate, practiced from years of training on a planet that punished hesitation. Even so, every alien eye in the bay shifted toward her the moment she entered. Humans were rare here. Some species regarded them as admirable anomalies. Most saw them as walking catastrophes. Kadra didn't bother to meet the stares. She drew a slow breath, grounded her nerves, and adjusted the strap of her pack. A row of banners hung high across the ceiling, each bearing the insignia of a galactic species: Virexians, Hierarchi, Drovan, Scalene, Forix. Near the far end hung a new banner with a blue sphere and white arc: Earth, the newest member of the Unified Accord. "You there?" A clipped voice echoed sharply from behind. "Human cadet?" Kadra turned to face a floating instructor drone. Its polished silver surface gleamed as a thin holographic lens flickered open, scanning her posture, heartbeat, and oxygen exchange rate. "Cadet Kadra Hale," she confirmed. "Proceed to Orientation Hall 7, the drone said, then paused. "Human vitals detected within acceptable range. Maintain controlled respiration. Some cadets may exhibit distress reactions to your presence." Kadra gave a small, controlled nod. "Noted." The drone hummed away. Behind her, she heard whispered comments. "Deathworlder. Look how calm she is. Her kind survived running battles and oxygen storms. Why bring one of them here?" Kadra kept walking. She'd expected it. Earth's reputation had reached the Academy long before she had. Humans were the only sapient species whose cradle world remained classified as a full-spectrum hazard zone. Everything on Earth could injure you: weather, predators, microbes, minerals. That reputation had become a mythic warning in galactic culture. Rumors portrayed humans as reckless survivors, biological anomalies built from stubbornness and adrenaline. Few aliens saw them as people first. Kadra intended to change that. Orientation Hall 7 expanded like a crystalline cavern, its walls layered in bioluminescent material that shifted colors depending on the species present. At the center stood an administrative instructor, a tall Forix with translucent skin revealing a complex vascular network. His voice held authority but no malice. "Cadets," he announced, "welcome to Virexis Academy. You stand in a place where species learn to lead, not compete. Cooperation is necessary. Dissent is expected. Failure, or brilliance, will be recorded without bias." Kadra listened while scanning the room. Cadets clustered by species. No one approached her. Not surprising. But one figure stood at the far side, towering over others, a crystalline armored Virexian with broad shoulders and gleaming carapace plates that caught the hall's light. He radiated an aura of disdain that almost felt visible. His attention never left Kadra. Vralik Jorwin. She'd read his file during transport. Top of his class. Elite lineage. Notorious temper. A cadet who believed superiority came through dominance. His stare sharpened when she met his gaze. The corners of his mandible plates lifted in a cold approximation of a smirk. "Already?" she thought. "He hasn't even spoken to me yet." The Forix instructor continued. "Your first test begins at dawn tomorrow. Until then, accommodations have been assigned according to atmospheric compatibility." A hologram of the dorm layout flickered to life. Species symbols marked each wing. A single blue circle gleamed far from the others. Kadra's room. No surprise. No one wanted to share a wing with a species capable of breathing oxygen densities that would injure half the students here. Cadets dispersed. Kadra started toward the exit, but a heavy shape stepped into her path. Vralik. He stood close enough that she could see the microfractures within his crystalline armor, glowing faintly with stored minerals. His voice was low and rough, grinding like stone. "So, the human finally arrives." Kadra kept her tone neutral. Cadet Vralik, correct? He tilted his head. You know my name. I suppose studies are the only advantage your kind has. I believe we're expected to cooperate, she replied, sidestepping. I intend to do exactly that. He blocked her again, mandible plates clacking in amusement. Your species calls itself resilient. I've seen footage. Bare flesh, exposed organs, pathetic defenses. You're here because the Accord wanted a demonstration creature. Kadra maintained eye contact. I'm here because I qualified. Curious choice of words. He leaned closer. Let's hope your bones hold up under pressure. I hear earthborn creatures snap like brittle reeds. Her pulse remained steady. If you're trying to provoke me, you'll need more strategy. His armor clicked in annoyance. You presume you can. Cadets. The Forex instructor appeared silently beside them. Conflict will resume in controlled conditions only. Disperse. Vralik stepped back, but not without glaring at Kadra. Your place here is temporary, human. She watched him leave, feeling the tension settle, then vanish. Vralik's hostility wasn't personal, it was cultural reflex. Humans unsettled some species. Strength, for them, came from rigidity. Humans operated differently, adapt, endure, survive. Still, she knew the encounter wasn't over. The path to her dormitory wound through geometric corridors humming with soft energy pulses. Screens projected academy regulations and assignment schedules. When she reached her room, the door recognized her biometrics and slid open. Inside, the environment shifted instantly to human-compatible atmosphere, warmer and richer in oxygen than most species tolerated. She set her pack down, stretched her hands, and let herself breathe freely for the first time that day. She sat at her desk, reviewing tomorrow's schedule, physical evaluation, neural response test, xenochemistry introduction. Xenochemistry. A high-risk discipline requiring precision across species differences. She exhaled slowly. That's where things could go wrong. Or right. Her console pinged, a message from Earth Command. Represent with discipline, Cadet Hale. Your actions reflect humanity entirely. Kadra stared at the words for a long moment. No pressure. Just the weight of an entire species watching. She shut the console and leaned back. Footsteps echoed faintly through the hallway outside, two cadets whispering. That human looked calm. Too calm. Vralik's furious already. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow would test everyone. But she'd survived lightning storms, feral predators, collapsing terrain, and environments that changed by the hour. One arrogant alien wasn't going to break her. She'd show them what a Deathworlder truly was. Not through violence, but through controlled power. Morning light filtered through the Academy's crystalline windows as cadets assembled for their first xenochemistry session. The laboratory stretched across two tiers, filled with containment vaults, suspended platforms, and equipment designed for species with wildly different biology. The room hummed with environmental regulators and shielding fields, precautions required whenever volatile elements interacted across alien physiology. Kadra entered quietly, scanning the rows of stations. Most cadets had paired off already, huddling according to species. A few glanced at her, then looked away. The instructor, a slender Scaline with iridescent scales and narrow eyes, beckoned her forward. You'll work independently, he said. Your atmospheric tolerance differs from the others. Kadra nodded. Understood. The Scaline gestured toward a workstation near the center. Today's lesson covers cross-reactivity compounds. Each species must identify which chemicals cause benign reactions, which cause harmful ones, and which require mixed species caution. Precision will determine your score. Kadra placed her datapad on the bench, reviewing the chemical charts. She noticed an entire column marked with triangular hazard symbols, compounds that triggered severe reactions in species with crystalline exoskeletons. Virextions, like Vralik. A shadow crossed her workstation before she had time to analyze further. Vralik's silhouette towered over her, mandible plates set in a triumphant angle. "Well," he said loudly, "the Deathworlder gets her own table. For safety, I assume." Several cadets chuckled weakly. Others kept their eyes fixed on their work, wanting no part in the confrontation. Kadra offered a controlled, polite nod. "Environmental differences. Not safety." Vralik leaned closer. "If the Academy wanted safety, they wouldn't have brought you here at all. Your kind thrives on danger." Kadra met his gaze without blinking. "My kind adapts. There's a difference." Her calm tone only fueled his irritation. With deliberate theatricality, he reached across his own bench and lifted a small containment vial. "Class," Vralik announced, raising his voice dramatically, "observe what happens when a Deathworlder is exposed to an unknown compound." The instructor turned sharply. "Cadet Jorwin, you will not perform demonstrations without approval." Vralik ignored him. "Relax, instructor. This compound is harmless to every species present, including humans, I assume." His assumption was correct. The substance was an inert neutralizer, safe, stable, and non-corrosive. Kadra had already reviewed its molecular profile. But Vralik wasn't interested in facts, he wanted a spectacle. Kadra straightened her gloves. "Your labels are mismatched," she said calmly. "That vial isn't harmless to you." Vralik froze, then laughed. "Do not pretend expertise, human. Your world's chemicals barely function outside your gravity." She tried again. "Your exoskeleton reacts to that compound. The warning symbols were." He cut her off. "Fear looks strange on human faces. You mask it well." Kadra's expression didn't change, but her voice sharpened with precision. "I'm not warning you for my sake." He dismissed her words with a sweep of his hand and strode back to his bench. The instructor opened his mouth to intervene, but Vralik had already reached into his pack, pulling out a second vial, this one mislabeled by his own earlier tampering. Kadra recognized the true compound instantly, solvent class K9, a substance contraindicated for crystalline-based species due to its destabilizing effect on mineralized exoskeletons. Her pulse quickened, not from fear, but from calculation. Vralik clearly didn't know what he was holding. Cadets gathered around, drawn by his booming voice. Some whispered encouragement, others watched with tight nervousness. Vralik held the vial aloft, letting the pale liquid catch the lab lights. "Let's see if the human's flesh is as resistant as the myths claim." Kadra stood still, hands clasped behind her back, posture unshaken. "Put it down." "And miss the opportunity to educate," he mocked. "I think not." The instructor stepped forward quickly. "Cadet Jorwin, that vial is." Vralik swung the container away from the instructor's grasp, laughing. "Please, instructor. I know my own species' limits. This is inert." The Scalene's voice tightened. "That compound is not." But Vralik didn't let him finish. He walked toward Kadra with measured arrogance, holding the vial above her head like a challenge. "You fear nothing," he said. "Perhaps that's the problem." Kadra didn't move. "I'm warning you for the last time. Silence, Deathworlder." The room fell silent, every cadet holding their breath. Vralik tilted the vial, letting a single droplet slide toward the lip. Kadra reacted instinctively. "Stop." But the droplet fell. It didn't land on her. It slid down the outside of the vial. Across Vralik's gauntlet. Onto the exposed seam of his crystalline armor. A faint hiss filled the air. Vralik blinked, confused. "What?" His armor surface rippled, the crystalline structure liquefying in tiny streams. The reaction spread outward, dissolving with eerie smoothness. The transparent material transitioned from solid to viscous in seconds. Gasps erupted across the lab. "What's happening?" a cadet cried. "Get back," another shouted. The instructor slammed his hand on the emergency panel, activating localized containment fields. Energy barriers shimmered around Vralik, isolating him from the rest of the class. Vralik's arrogance vanished instantly. "Instructor, make it stop." The compound continued eating through the crystalline layers. His arm trembled violently as the liquefaction reached deeper structures. Kadra stepped forward, analyzing the reaction speed. Her voice remained level. "You grabbed the wrong vial." Pain flooded Vralik's features. "Do something." The instructor tried to override the reaction with neutralizing foam, but the automated dispensers didn't activate. The solvent was too strong at the point of contact. Cadets backed as far as the walls allowed. Several panicked. The scent of reacting crystal filled the lab, sharp and acidic. Kadra's instincts surged, training overriding emotion. She moved quickly, pulling a protective barrier sheet from her workstation. The instructor snapped toward her. "Hale, stay inside your zone." "Your zone isn't working," she replied. "Mine will." Vralik's voice cracked. "Human, help me." The irony didn't escape her. Kadra approached carefully, assessing remaining structural integrity. His arm was close to collapse, the reaction had begun spreading along his shoulder. She opened a reinforced supply drawer, grabbing a containment clamp and thermal inhibitor. Her movements remained steady, almost surgical. Vralik stared at her through shock and rising terror. "Please, halt the reaction." Kadra met his eyes with calm precision. "Hold still." She reached into the containment field as alarms blared overhead. The containment field shimmered like a heat mirage as Kadra stepped through its boundary. The temperature inside was higher, the air laced with acrid vapor from Vralik's dissolving armor. The reaction had spread across his forearm and was migrating along crystalline veins toward his chest. Vralik's breath came in ragged bursts. "Hurry, please." Kadra crouched beside him, careful not to touch the liquefying segments. "Don't move. Every shift accelerates the spread." He froze, fighting the instinct to recoil from his own disintegrating armor. The remains of his gauntlet dripped in translucent strands, collecting in small pools on the floor. Outside the barrier, cadets watched in paralyzed shock. The instructor attempted to bypass the emergency controls again, but the system refused. Safety overrides had locked down everything except the inner field. Kadra analyzed the liquid texture, the viscosity, the heat signature radiating from Vralik's damaged armor. The solvent had fused with the trace minerals unique to Virexian exoskeletons, creating a chain reaction that couldn't be neutralized with standard foam. But it could be slowed. She pulled a compact inhibitor pack from her belt. Human military training required familiarity with rapid response chemical treatments, even those designed for alien environments. "Hold out your arm," Kadra said. Vralik's eyes widened as she unlatched the inhibitor and snapped it open. "What is that?" "A thermal barrier gel. It will stabilize the reaction long enough to stop further degradation. It's not designed for my species." "It doesn't need to be," she said. "It's designed to work fast." The gel hissed as she spread it along the dissolving seam. The reaction slowed immediately, the liquefying armor solidifying in uneven patches. Vralik gasped at the sudden drop in temperature. "Stay with me," Kadra said. "You're not losing the limb." He stared at her, confused by her certainty. Why are you helping me?" She looked up briefly. "Because you're in danger." "That isn't," his voice cracked as pain surged. "That isn't a reason." "It's enough." The gel reached its limit, stabilizing only part of the reaction. The spread toward his shoulder continued, slower, but relentless. Kadra retrieved the containment clamp and positioned it above an intact armor segment. "You're going to hear a crack," she warned. "Don't react." "Crack?" She closed the clamp around the solid portion. The crystalline structure fractured sharply. Vralik cried out, mandibles snapping involuntarily. Kadra steadied his arm. "The damaged section has to detach. It's your best chance." He clenched his jaw plates. "Do it." She applied pressure. The compromised armor separated from the healthier plates, falling away in a molten sheet. The exposed layer beneath looked raw, pulsing with mineral channels struggling to reform. The reaction stalled. Vralik slumped, trembling. It stopped. Kadra inspected the remaining surface. The worst of it, yes. But you've taken significant damage. You need medical support. The instructor's voice echoed from outside the field. Cadet Hale. Your inhibitor use and clamp application were correct. Maintain position, med drones are en route. Kadra stood slowly, shoulders relaxing only slightly. Vralik's eyes followed her movement. You knew what that compound would do, he said, voice low. You warned me. I did. And I ignored you. You did. He swallowed, the crystalline plates along his throat flexing hesitantly. I mocked you. I endangered you. I tried to humiliate you. Kadra held his gaze. That's irrelevant right now. It isn't, he insisted. I treated you as something lesser. And you saved me. She didn't answer immediately. Her mind was still processing reaction metrics, escape vectors, and the exact moment when the meltdown could have spread to the students crowding the outer wall. What you did could have killed more than you, Kadra finally said. If that solvent touched your classmates, the containment system would have failed. Your species isn't the only one vulnerable to cross-reactive compounds. Vralik's mandibles twitched in shame. I didn't think. Correct, Kadra said. You didn't. He lowered his head, an admission few Virections ever made. Before he could speak again, the lab doors slid open and med drones rushed in with hovering platforms. The containment field flickered off under emergency protocol. Drones swept around Vralik, scanning the dissolving patches and reading molecular signatures. A lead drone turned toward Kadra. Your interventions prevented structural collapse of the patient's exoskeleton. His condition is stable but critical. You acted with precision. Kadra stepped aside as the drones lifted Vralik onto a stabilization platform. He watched her, eyes brighter than before. I owe you my life, he said quietly. Kadra gave a small nod. Focus on recovery. As the drones carried him out, the remaining cadets dispersed slowly, whispering among themselves. Some stared at Kadra with fear, others with respect. A few looked at her as if they had never seen a human before, and perhaps, in a sense, they hadn't. The instructor approached once the lab cleared. His scales shifted colors and measured patterns, scalene body language for approval. You exhibited restraint, analysis, and decisive action, he said. Your conduct will be included in the incident report. Was there damage outside the containment zone? Kadra asked. Minimal, he replied. Because you acted before panic escalated. She exhaled. Good. The instructor tilted his head. Most cadets, when provoked to such extent, would have stepped back during a hazardous reaction. You stepped forward. Kadra wiped residual gel from her gloves. Running wouldn't have helped anyone. Many would argue it is not your responsibility to protect someone who openly despised you. Kadra met his gaze. Responsibility isn't selective. The instructor's eyes narrowed in thoughtful approval. The academy will take note of your philosophy. He left her alone in the quiet lab. The remnants of Vralik's liquefied armor glistened on the floor, a stark reminder of how easily arrogance had nearly turned into tragedy. Kadra took a moment to center herself. The weight of the event settled slowly, first in her chest, then in her thoughts. She didn't regret the choice. She didn't regret stepping forward. But she understood one truth clearly now. Her presence here would never be simple. Later that evening, a soft chime sounded at her dorm entrance. Kadra opened the door to find a hovering message drone. A recorded hologram projected above it, the Academy's emblem stamped at the top. Cadet Hale, the message read, you are requested in the command hall at dawn for formal evaluation regarding the xenochemistry incident. Beneath the official tone lay something else, recognition, perhaps. Or curiosity. Kadra dismissed the drone and returned to her desk. Outside, the Academy lights dimmed as the orbit platform passed through Karen 9's shadow. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the seconds before a storm. She clasped her hands, remembering the moment the solvent touched Vralik's armor. The sudden hiss. The panic. The choice. Humanity's reputation had always been shaped by stories of violence, chaos, survival under impossible odds. Today, she added something different, a demonstration that humans chose discipline when others expected destruction. She looked out the window as the planet's swirling atmosphere glowed beneath the station. Tomorrow would bring questions. She would face them calmly. She would answer honestly. And she would continue proving that a Deathworlder's greatest strength wasn't force, but judgment. Dawn crept across Karen 9's horizon in muted gold, casting long shadows inside the Academy's central atrium. Kadra arrived at the command hall precisely on schedule. The pressure doors closed behind her with a low resonance, sealing off the outside corridor. The chamber ahead glowed with cool blue light, its crystalline walls reflecting fragments of her silhouette as she walked. Rows of elevated platforms formed a semicircle around a single central podium. High-ranking officers from several species occupied the seats, Forex, Scalene, Hierarchi, and a single Virexian whose armor gleamed like carved citron. Their silent observation settled over the room with the weight of a verdict already prepared. Kadra stepped onto the podium, spine straight, mind steady. A voice broke the tension. "Cadet Hale. You understand the nature of this evaluation?" The speaker was Commander Thaler, a Scalene elder whose iridescent scales shifted in firm but neutral patterns. His tone carried neither accusation nor sympathy, only precise intent. "Yes, Commander," Kadra said. "To determine the events of the xenochemistry incident." "Correct." His eyes narrowed slightly. "This is not a disciplinary hearing. It is an assessment of conduct under hazardous conditions. We seek clarity." From the Virexian platform came a low crystalline hum, disapproval or skepticism, Kadra couldn't tell. She kept her gaze forward. Commander Thaler tapped his datapad. A holographic projection formed above the podium, replaying the lab footage from multiple angles, Vralik's boast, the vial tipping, the first ripple of dissolving crystal. The moment Vralik screamed echoed faintly against the walls. Kadra watched without flinching. The truth didn't need her edits. When the projection ended, Commander Thaler folded his hands. "Begin your account." Kadra spoke clearly. Cadet Jorwin initiated contact with an incorrectly labeled vial. I warned him he had misidentified the compound. He disregarded the warning. Upon contact with his armor, a chemical reaction began, hazardous to his species and possibly others nearby. The Virexian officer leaned forward. "You claim he mislabeled the containers?" Kadra met his gaze. "I claim he tampered with them earlier to orchestrate a mock demonstration. That action led to his mistake." A murmur rippled across the platforms. The Hierarchi representatives scratched their segmented plates, considering the statement. Commander Thaler lifted a hand for silence. "Continue." "I acted based on training and available materials. The reaction required rapid containment. I assessed the rate of spread and applied a thermal inhibitor to slow degradation. When that was insufficient, I removed the compromised section with a clamp. That prevented full exoskeletal collapse." The Forex officer tilted his head. "Were you aware that the inhibitor could have caused further damage to a Virexian?" "Yes," Kadra replied. "It was a calculated risk. A controlled cold burn was preferable to unchecked dissolution. And you accepted responsibility for that decision." "I accepted responsibility for everyone's safety." The room stilled. Even the Virexian officer paused, mandibles lowering a fraction. Another hologram appeared, close-up analysis of her interventions, rendered in clean precision. Chemical readings, temperature fluctuations, structural stabilization, everything she executed under pressure. It was impossible to misinterpret. The Forex officer nodded. Your methods align with emergency doctrine. The Varexian officer shifted. And yet, your presence triggered the confrontation. Kadra turned her attention to him. Respectfully, sir. My existence did not cause Cadet Jorwin to break procedure. The officer's crystalline jaw stiffened. Your species inspires fear. Instinctive reactions can escalate dangerously. Kadra held firm. Then the lesson is that instinct must never replace discipline. A quiet inhale traveled through the semicircle. Commander Thaler's eyes glimmered with restrained approval. Before the Varexian officer could form a rebuttal, the hall doors opened. Vralik entered. He walked slowly, supported by medical exosplints along his arm. The damaged plates were replaced with temporary mineral scaffolds that pulsed with faint bioluminescent energy. His steps were unsteady but deliberate. The officers exchanged surprised glances. Kadra remained still. Vralik approached the podium and stopped beside her, mandibles lowered in an unfamiliar gesture of humility. "Commanders," he said, voice rough, "I request permission to speak." The Varexian officer nodded stiffly. Vralik inhaled. The human cadet did not cause the incident. The fault is mine entirely. He faced the semicircle directly. I tampered with the vials. I mocked her. I ignored multiple warnings because I wanted to prove human fragility. Instead, I revealed my own. The Varexian officer shifted uncomfortably. "Cadet Jorwin, this admission could jeopardize your status." Vralik straightened, radiating something unfamiliar, resolve without arrogance. "Then let it. Truth must stand." He turned toward Kadra. "She saved me." Without hesitation. Without hesitation, he repeated quietly, as if the memory struck deeper than he expected. Kadra observed him, studying not his words but the sincerity in his posture. The arrogance from earlier had dissolved completely. Commander Thaler's expression softened. "Cadet Hale, do you confirm Cadet Jorwin's testimony?" "I confirm that he disregarded warnings," Kadra said. "And I confirm that I acted to prevent further harm. No embellishment. Just fact." The officers huddled briefly in murmured discussion. After a moment, Commander Thaler delivered their conclusion. "Cadet Hale," he announced, "your judgment under crisis was exemplary. Your actions prevented multiple casualties. Your file will reflect commendation for critical decision-making." Kadra nodded once, accepting but not celebrating. Then Commander Thaler turned toward Vralik. "Cadet Jorwin, your misconduct was severe. You will face corrective training, loss of rank privileges, and mandatory cross-species protocol study." Vralik bowed his head. "I accept." The command hall fell silent again. The officers dismissed the cadets, allowing them to exit through separate corridors. Kadra waited until Vralik began moving toward the exit before speaking. "You didn't have to come forward." He stopped. "I did. You could have let the investigation rely on footage." He turned, meeting her eyes directly. "Footage doesn't reveal intent. It doesn't show who tried to save who." Kadra studied him. Not the bully from earlier, but someone trying to rebuild his identity from the chaos he caused. "You'll recover," she said. "I will," Vralik replied. "But what you taught me today," his voice hardened with sincerity. "Humans don't frighten me anymore. They humble me." "Good," Kadra said. "Fear clouds judgment. And arrogance destroys it." A faint smile touched her lips. "Lesson learned?" "Learned," he said quietly. They left the hall in opposite directions, no longer adversaries, no longer strangers trapped in the shadows of prejudice. As Kadra stepped into the corridor, a new notification flashed on her wrist pad. "Cadet Hale, you are reassigned to Advanced Multi-Species Response Training. Effective immediately. A promotion. Earned not by strength, but by restraint." She exhaled, walked forward, and let the academy doors close behind her.